Hi, everyone. So I was asked by a friend of mine in a very powerful group that I'm working with at the moment and running. This friend said, could you do a video on abundance and the infinite? And I went, of course, I'm happy to do that. And then it struck me after we'd finished, or actually during the program, I mentioned it briefly. It really needs to be abundance and the infinite and limitation. Now, limitation in general has been a bad word in the last 50 years of the whole personal development scene, the alternative scene, the hippies. It's all been about blowing our minds, quantum thinking, going beyond everything. And there's been some really great stuff in that because we've discovered there is something greater than us and something that's unbound and unlimited, and that it cares for us. And a lot of people took up meditation, did a lot of good stuff and looked at their issues, looked at their limitations, and really identified where those limitations were holding them back or causing them pain or completely wrecking their lives, and that they could do much better. But in that process, one of the things that got put on the back burner is that limitations are crucial if you're going to be alive in a human body in this world. So what's my point? We're going to look at abundance. I was asked about the infinite. And whatever our unique relationship is with the infinite, and we do all have a unique relationship with it, the one thing the infinite lacks is limitation. Limitation is a fascination to the infinite. Otherwise, why would it have created so much? Right? It's like they're fascinated with it. It's whatever, even the words don't fit it. But the infinite created a space and filled it and keeps expanding it and developing it because it's fascinated by what can be expressed and the depth and passion and power of the love that can be experienced in the finite world. And being the infinite, it knew it had to accept limitations. And if bits of the infinite showed up in this world, us, then they would have to live with those limitations. And they'd need to be given freedom to take responsibility for choosing what limitations they have, at least at a certain point in their life. And I'm not going to define exactly where that is. So it's like, how do we work with limitations and get the best out of it? How can we find the beauty, the power, the love, the success, the, winning, and how can we make the finite work when we're essentially at the core of us infinite beings? And that's a very interesting dilemma. Now, for thousands of years, we haven't been really consciously dealing with our limits, on the most of us anyway. We've been just coping with them, dealing with them, surviving them, trying to get on top of them, trying to conquer them, break through our limits. And there's been a few very wise or successful people who've taken a different approach to that. But right now, we're at a point where, as limited human beings who come from an infinite source or consciousness or whatever you want to call it, we need to come to terms with our limitations and get the very best out of them. Now, that means really looking at our limitations, consciously, deliberately dealing with them, but not being obsessed with the negative effect of it. not ignoring it, dealing with it, but we need to really look at what is the positive benefit? Why is the infinite so fascinated with limitations that it created an abundance of limitations in this world? And if we're going to experience abundance in a true sense, not just an abundance of money, the thing is, if we create, each of us is unique, each of us was born with different gifts and talents, which come because of our limitations, of our beliefs, of the choices that we've made, of our design, the structure we have, the body we have, the country, the culture, the family, everything that we lived in. And as you can see, there's an abundance of limiting factors that we need to have to exist. You know, you can't be a salamander and a human being at the same time. You've got different, very, very different limits and needs and live very different lives. And so it's like, let's look at our limitations. But for the last 50 years, there's been this bias towards they're bad and let's break out of them, rather than let's assess our limitations, find out which ones support us and empower us, at least have got us through till now, and keep those going as long as they serve us. And which limitations can we learn something from, be done with them, and then create new limitations. And this is a big thing that's developing over the next 2 months, particularly into December. And then into January. There are these particular things happening astrologically, transits and stuff like that, but they bring up 2 big issues: resourcefulness and leadership. And it comes in an area that really celebrates the fact that we are limited, and how limitation is profoundly important to change, how altering our limits by seeing the gifts that they are and getting the best out of them, so we, in a sense, transcend them, rather than withdraw into ourselves and keep our limitations to ourselves, process them endlessly, which can be good, but then never translate that into embracing our gifts, taking it out in the world and making a real difference. That's where you transcend it, in the world of limitation. And you walk away as an infinite being with the joy of having experienced that. That's what you take with you. So if your abundance isn't based on the joy of what you're experiencing, and it's based on any other agenda, it's actually going to limit your abundance. Or you'll have all this abundance, but you'll never fully drink out of it and take out of it the joy that you want to take with you when you're finished. Now, here's a great way to tackle that. Look at things like your personal power, limitation, abundance, spirituality, which is your relationship with the infinite, your personal, intimate relationship with that which is greater than you. And that is expressed much more in you than it is in something that's, you can't quite relatable. You know, you have a unique relationship with the infinite. So take those things and ask yourself questions, or get people to ask you what I call self-reflective questions. Not self-obsessive, self-reflective. And go, look, you want to increase your personal power, or you want to understand personal power, ask yourself, where have I felt powerful? Where have I been persuasive? Where have I felt the joy of my gift showing up in the world and people paid attention and were influenced by it? And then just go back through your life, because no matter how messed up it's been or how great it's been, you've known, because you've experienced the joy of it, when that has happened. Now, when I've done that with people in my groups, it's gone from a deep and meaningful processing workshop where we go into, which we've done 50 years worth of work on, if you've been around as long as I have anyway. Right? But it turns it from that into like, let's examine the darkness, the shadow work, which is really important. But let's examine the darkness. And it's like, it just keeps going and going and going. But where has your light shown up like a star in the sky? Where has your light shone? When you acknowledge that, when you recognize that, when you own that, when you celebrate that, guess what? More of it, you become more comfortable with going, oh, that's what I'm good at. Oh, that's where my power lies, rather than trying to copy somebody else's expression of power. That's where my beauty lies. That's where my talents and gifts lie. And those self-reflective questions force you to stop criticizing yourself for all the things you've done wrong, or desperately trying to chase things that seem great because everyone else does them. And it gets you back into, where's your greatness showing up? Where's your significance showing up? Where have you made real changes in your life? Where have you made choices where you've gone inside yourself and changed a choice or a decision or a belief, and your life changed? I mean, you did it even when you were a child. So it's not like after I did a workshop, it's like you've been doing it all the time since you were born. And where have you dared to stand on the brink and step into the unknown? Because all of those things I just mentioned remind you, and they're all there to remind you of the fact that love is the core of who you are. And life was created, this world, this universe was created out of love. And it's just wanting to help you. But it gives you the freedom and the responsibility and the power to decide what your limits are. Now, when you pick the limits that bring out the best in you, abundance comes chasing you. And it's the abundance you need, not the abundance other people tell you you should have. It's the support that you need so that you can flourish and thrive. That's my literal experience. And with thousands of clients I've dealt with. Because that's what we do when we do a human design session or do workshops or seminars. It's just like we identify what's great about you, what's significant. Where have you made changes in your life? Oh, you'd like to make changes? Here's how you're designed to do it. You want to change your internal state? Well, this is the way you do it. Not the way Tony Robbins does it, not the way I do it. This is the way you do it. And you know it works because you've already experienced it in your life. So keep focusing on that and more of it will come. This is where you've dared to stand on the brink, step into the unknown, challenge your boundaries, expand your limits, revise them. And the key is when you're in touch with all of that and you see how love operates in your life, rather than constantly retreat into meditation and processing and all that, which is great, has its place for sure. I've done it for 45 years, so I'm not at all putting it down. But then there's a point where you come out and rather than serve the world, you serve what's great about you to the world, and that is of service. And that makes a real difference, because not only do other people benefit from the unique character of who you are and the unique abundance you bring to the world, not only, but you transcend your limits into new ones, which are more fun, more expansive, and the infinite gets to be enchanted by the fascination of how you do that. It's a win-win-win. And when you go back, when you die, when you go back to the infinite, you carry all that joy with you as your gift, saying thank you for that experience. And if you want more, I have no doubt the infinite would say, hey, you want more? Go for it. I've had enough, great, where we go now? And the part of us that we talk as a soul feels very liberated. And at the same time, it's ready for the next adventure. So rather than limitation and scarcity being something you're trying to get out of, you go into it deliberately and consciously as an expression of there's so many possibilities. Life is so full of abundance. And then life shows you how abundant it is. You start to see it in the world and the earth that we live in. I saw videos of all the different planets we've explored in the last 20 or 30 years last night. And, Mars has got a little bit going for it, but the rest of them, it's pretty bleak compared to Earth. It's like, wow. You just walk outside and look at the sunshine and the flowers, and it's ripping here. And we're a part of it. And there's so many options out there. And if you don't like them, like I did, I wasn't that, buzzed by Australia, although now I've come back and really began to appreciate it. I went to America because that was going to be the rest of my life. And it's like, well, it's not a time I'd like to be particularly there at the moment, particularly where I was living. And I went to Thailand. It was like, wow, this is great. And then so much abundance. And now I'm back in Australia to make sure I didn't resent what I had, reframing the whole way I present myself to the world and ready for a whole new adventure. So if you really want abundance, realize you're a part of something incredibly amazing called the infinite. And your limitations are the gifts that infinite gave to you, so you can experience it abundantly in absolutely unique forms of expression that have never been and will never be again. So that's my little speech for today. It's a little shorter than the longer one I did earlier, but ask yourself, create them. I mean, I've got a whole bunch I've created for myself. If anyone's interested on certain things or interested in exploring that, either in a consultation or just would like me to throw them some questions, happy to do that. Just, ask me, contact me on wherever you see this, and I'll give you some examples of what worked for me. But it's crucial that you take that as an example and structure them for yourself, because you're here to discover you. And as someone who spent a lot of my life discovering myself, I can give you some examples, but only you can do you. You matter. That's what counts, really getting in touch with that and enjoying the time that you're here in this limited reality where love can be so focused and so specific and so real. And you can take the joy of that back with you. Talk to you again soon.